So hello everyone, welcome to SNEED-CAST. Today our special guest is none other than the founder of ThePackHub, Paul Jenkins. So hello Paul, thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, so delighted to be here today.
Of course. And today we're going to be talking about how to go from a packaging concept to actually landing on the shelf. Paul, you have tons of experience with this, but before we jump into it, just a little bit about your background. How did you first get started in packaging?
I founded the ThePackHub around 13 years ago, and before that, I was had a career in brand marketing for a consumer goods company, and I think I just had my role included doing a lot of packaging work, and so when I left that business, I was made redundant. I was looking to do something new and different, and landed in packaging. A lot of people in packaging just sort of find themselves there without really meaning to be there.
Right. And then how is it that the Pack Hub's mission came to be bridging the gap between packaging ideas and market-ready solutions? Like, what is it that steered you guys in that direction?
I think what at the heart of our business is a passion and understanding of packaging innovation. So we built the business around making sure that we're experts in all things packaging innovation in terms of trends and the latest advancements. So I guess that's really what our point of difference and what makes us different and explains what you just said to me.
So talking about the Pack Hub, I know that there are some core offerings that you guys focus on. So there's like the innovation zone, your technical services, event, trend reporting. But can you dive a little bit deeper?
I would love to, yeah. So I think of all the things you mentioned, the innovation zone is our most important product because pretty much everything we do goes back to the innovation zone platform. And what it is a packaging innovation database where we collate and collect all the latest packaging innovations. We've been doing it for about 10 years now, so we've got over 10,000 initiatives on the platform across food, beverage, consumer goods, health and beauty, household, etc. And it's a true reflection of the innovations that we see and that are happening around the world. So every project we do, we draw the experience and expertise from the innovation zone platform. So I think that's the most sort of important. If I could describe one thing, it would be the innovation zone.
Right. And then, okay, so on our end, we work with so many small to medium-sized businesses, and I know sometimes the idea of like starting this whole journey of getting from like just a concept, developing your product, to actually getting on the shelf can be a little bit daunting. What would you say are some of the roadblocks that small businesses can face when first starting on this journey?
Yeah, there are a lot. Obviously, I guess one of the main one is in terms of resource, and that is
Mm,
financial and people power. We're a small business. It can be difficult to have enough cash flow and funds to ensure that you can do things properly. You don't have the benefit of the larger businesses can afford to make mistakes. They can afford for launches to fail, and small
mm,
businesses may go out of business if their next launch isn't a success. They also suffer because they're small. And a benefit is that they're agile, but it's a drawback as well because you don't have a big team of research and development experts. You don't have experts in innovation and patent searching and things like that. So often you have one or two people doing a lot of different jobs. So that can be a real challenge when you're competing against bigger organizations with much bigger budgets.
mhm. And then we also know that supply chain can sometimes be an issue just because like when you're trying to supply or when you're trying to meet like the minimum order quality or quantities. Can you talk a little bit about those types of challenges?
Absolutely. So any organization will usually has a minimum order quantity, and if you're just starting
Mm,
out, you're starting from zero, and you don't know how much you're going to sell, and you don't have much working capital, so you kind of want to keep that first packaging product to a manageable size, and minimum order quantities can sometimes be um, uh, can create a real challenge because it's too large in terms of the cost and more product than you actually need. And again, it's another disadvantage you have against a bigger company that will have better
Right.
forecasting tools and will be able to sort of to take on that extra cost in terms of warehousing and actual outlay. So yes, so things like minimum order quantities and just dealing with the supply chain can be a real challenge when you're a smaller business.
Mhm. And then I know that earlier you had talked about how you guys keep up to date with all of these packaging trends, but obviously, like, there's not only the packaging trend aspect to focus on, there's also regulations to focus on and sustainability to focus on. Is that something that the Pack Hub like focuses on as well?
Yes, I mean sustainability, packaging innovation and sustainability can be interchanged. Really, the two terms are the same. A few years ago, um, many packaging innovations didn't have a sustainable angle. They were delivering something else, but just about every initiative we see now has sustainability at its heart. And you mentioned regulation and law
Mhm.
changes, and that can be a real challenge for a small business. Like in the US, you've got 50 states coming up with different rules, so you've got the huge logistical challenges, supply chain challenges of managing different pack requirements potentially in different states. And you've got the indecision and often changing rules around the world, really. EPR, PPWR, packaging taxes, they're all there to raise revenues and potentially to reduce the impact of packaging from a sustainable point of view. But they create lots of challenges because you've got to, a small business, as any business does, has to go along with the regulations, and often that can create a lot of time to fulfill and cost as well. So it can be a real challenge.
This episode of the SNEED-CAST is proudly brought to you by the SNEED-JET Freedom 41. The Freedom 41 features an impressive 4-inch tall stitch printhead enabling clear printing of barcodes, logos, dates, batch codes, lot codes, and other traceability information. With a 300 dpi printing capability, it delivers high-resolution prints. This versatile printer supports both water-based and solvent-based inks, allowing you to print on various materials such as plastic, glass, pipes, metals, boxes, paper, concrete, and more. Experience the freedom of large-scale printing and simplify your printing task with our maintenance-free thermal inkjet technology.
So I know we talked a lot about like the realities of being a small business, some of the challenges that you might encounter, of going from like concept to shelf. But what would you say are some of the advantages of being a small business and developing or being on this type of pathway?
Well, small businesses, I've used the word agile 2 or 3 times. I think it's the perfect word to describe
Right.
some of these businesses because they can act quickly. They don't have a big board of directors to pass every decision off. They don't have a big
Mhm.
process. It may be 1 or 2 people. And it means actually they do have an advantage over bigger businesses. They can actually get things done quickly and they can get things from concept to reality on a supermarket shelf quite quickly. And I think
Mhm.
that is a real advantage that a small business has over a large one.
Right. And I know that some of the things that we've seen when it comes to like our small to medium sized businesses is that you're able to or you're able to connect with your audience a lot better than, or not a lot better, but you obviously have that you have the ability to connect with people a little bit easier than say like bigger companies.
Absolutely, and I think consumers respond to that. Um, they like the David and Goliath thing. They like to support the
Mhm.
smaller businesses. They often um, SMB brands often take the name of the founder on the packaging, so it'll be somebody's name's product. And I think there's a real authenticity about that, and there is a sort of a reaction to big corporate profit-making machines, and the opposite of that is often a smaller business. So I think there is a lot of empathy and connection. And I think by being a small business owner, you have to be extremely knowledgeable. You really have to know your market. And actually, you don't need a big research team to do that
Mhm.
necessarily. You can just be completely single-minded and focused, and really try and understand your target audience.
Right. And I know sometimes when it comes to being like on a small team, the resources that you have become these like absolute necessities. What would you say that the Pack Hub's Innovation Zone and Patent Zone can do for these smaller businesses?
Yeah, I guess the innovation zone and patent zone. So the patent zone, which I haven't mentioned, is
Hmm.
similar to the innovation zone, but it tracks interesting latest sort of patents, packaging patents from around the world. That's
Right.
the idea behind that is to sort of find out what's going on in the market and what might be coming down the line, because these are ideas that are being protected for future use. So it gives you a sort of a bit of a crystal ball as to what might be coming down the line. But both platforms really are there um, to ensure that you're not missing out on anything, that the innovations that are coming through um, you know about, and actually you can act quite quickly if you see something that looks quite interesting you didn't know about. You can act quickly and deliver something similar yourself. But I think it's just a hygiene factor in terms of just really um, it's hard to do your job properly if you don't know what's going on in the market in terms of competitors and the broader market. I think another aspect of it is you should not just look at your own sector. So
Hmm.
if you're a beverage SMB business, you should be looking at what's going on in other categories like food and household and health and beauty, because there may be some clever packaging innovations that you could actually steal, if you like, for your own use. And often we see that transfer from one sector to another.
Right. And then at the Pack Hub, do you guys offer any kind of like webinars, training, how small businesses can plug into the ecosystem without massive budgets?
Yeah, so we help businesses large and small. So you don't need a big budget to be
Hmm.
helped. It could be a small piece of advice that's an hour's conversation. It doesn't have to be a long 6 weeks, six-figure budget kind of project. So yeah, we many of our packaging technologists have worked for smaller businesses. They work with startups. They understand their needs, and we the first thing we do is we listen. We find out what the problem is and what it is that's trying to be solved, and we take it from there.
Mm. And then, Paul, so in marketing, I know for us, a big thing is like people trust people. So what are some real world examples or some real companies that you guys have helped out that you can tell us about?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we work with large and small businesses, and some of the
Mm.
couple of recent examples. So we've helped a premium olive oil brand.
Mm.
They wanted to minimise their environmental impact whilst still ensuring product quality, durability, and practicality. So there was a real challenge for us. So we looked at the broader market. We used the innovation zone. We used our network, and we helped sort of understand and articulate the landscape for for recycling. So they were
Mm.
keen to look at more sustainable options. We helped explain the extended producer responsibility, the EPR, for this for the UK, and also other alternatives for recycling, like the TerraCycle scheme, for example. So that was one example with a premium olive oil business. We also worked with a startup honey
Mm.
brand, and they were looking really for sourcing examples. So we found um, some suitable plastic packaging solutions for their honey products. They have very specific design and sustainability requirements, and the project involved identifying various options, providing samples, and delivering costings, all within a 2 week timeline. So um, what we've got to remember is that these small businesses aren't experts
Mm.
in packaging; they're experts in the products that they sell. So to get a little bit of advice from experts like the Pack Up can really help them.
Right. And then what would you say made these projects successful?
Well, a successful project is a confirmation at the end that the client is happy and delivering on time as well. And we've given them the tools and the information to move forward. And a successful project is one where they don't need to come back and ask more questions. You've kind of delivered everything.
So, what lessons or patterns emerge across successful innovation journeys?
I'm not sure that's quite a what patterns. Oh dear. Let me think
Or
what
in your time of helping out like small businesses, large companies, what lessons have you learned?
the lessons I've learned is that lead times get shorter, budgets get smaller, and there are more challenges along the way. I think 10, 15 years ago, we had less regulation, we had less
Mhm.
emphasis on sustainability. Arguably, the landscape was less competitive, if that makes sense, but there's so many market players now. A brand has a very short time on a supermarket shelf before it's delisted if it's not successful. I just think things are just generally harder to do. So I guess there's a sort of general shift. All sorts of factors and things have just become a bit more tricky, but it doesn't mean that we can't do it.
Right. And then we've talked a little bit about the past, regulations have obviously increased. Where do you think we're going to be in the next like 3 to 5 years?
I think we're going to be still in a similar place in that regulations and legislation and rules and acts will still be a major part of everyday working life for a packaging professional. I'd like to hope that we've moved the dial a little bit in terms of where we are with sustainability, so that recycling rates may have improved, and packaging's impact on the environment may have reduced. I'd like to hope that we'll be seeing more refill and reuse solutions in the market, because there's a tremendous opportunity there to reduce the environmental impact of packaging that way. So those are some of the things. We're going to continue to have regulation, but I'm hoping that we would have moved forward in terms of actually achieving some of those sustainability goals.
Right. And then what packaging innovations would you say are market ready, like they're here to stay, they're not going anywhere? And then which ones would you say are still evolving?
Packaging innovations that are here to stay are the sustainable ones. So in terms of packs that are 100% recyclable, refill and reuse packs, packs that some innovations are quite hard to spot. So a big area of development over the last 10 or 20 years has been packaging reduction. And so it's packs that have taken out and stripped out as much sort of cost and unnecessary material to really still deliver impact and functionality are definitely here to stay. And in terms of ones that are bubbling under, refill and reuse, I think there's more opportunity to deliver reusable and refillable packaging. I think there's a big lesson, a narrative around giving consumers the knowledge about what they need to do in terms of refillable and reusable packaging. It can be quite inconvenient still. There's all sorts of challenges around deposits and return rates and consumer communication, health and safety challenges. So there are a lot of barriers in the way, but I think the refill and reuse is bubbling under as a very big opportunity to ultimately reduce costs because you're using less packaging and reduce the environmental impact. So that's my one to watch for the future.
And then from a small business perspective, what do you think they should be focusing their attention on to stay competitive?
It's the same things. It's sustainability. You mustn't take your eye off the ball in terms of being as sustainable as you can, having a very firm view on what's coming down the line. So what is compliant now from a regulation point of view may not be so in 2 or 3 years' time. So the planning needs to consider not just the now, but the future as well. So you shouldn't be implementing new pack designs that aren't future-proof, that may need changing again in 2 or 3 years' time. So you really do need that crystal ball and that long-term view as to what might be changing in the future.
Right. And then some key takeaways that we would like to leave our listeners with, just to make sure that they understand, you don't need the biggest budget out there to innovate, correct?
That is correct. Yeah, we've seen plenty of successes out there of small startup brands that have been a tremendous success. I mentioned about agility. I mentioned about the ability to make quick decisions. These are the kind of things that can mean that a small business can win. They can launch 3 product lines whilst a big conglomerate is still at the first phase of the decision-making process. I mean, small businesses, big businesses are notoriously slow at implementing innovations. Not all, obviously, but so you have that big advantage. So you've got to play to your strengths, which is being small is a strength in that sense.
Right. And then another touch point that we definitely want to focus on is the fact that sustainability and smart packaging aren't future trends. They're very much here. It's very much now. So just something else for our small businesses, medium-sized businesses, even big businesses to consider going forward. But we also want to give the chance, or we also want to give you the chance to just plug the ThePackHub, any resources that you think would be useful. Now would be the time to share them.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, so I would recommend just going to our website, ThePackHub.com. We have an innovation news section, so every day we update a packaging innovation. That's searchable, so that's quite useful to sort of, so if you want to look at refill innovations or recycling or startups, then you can search there. So that's a good resource. Have a look around our website, and if anyone is just inquisitive, curious, just drop us a line and we can have a no commitment, no cost chat about your requirements and take it from there.
Right. Well, thank you, Paul, for all of the great insights. I know that with everything that keeps changing, we would love to have you back on at some point to talk about EPR, circular economy, bottle deposit systems even, and maybe even lessons learned from Europe. So if you'd be willing to come back, we'd be so happy to have you.
I would absolutely love to.
Of course. But again, thank you so much for all of the great insights. I know our viewers are going to be over the moon about them.